Royals from Lord on Magic at 8:35. Mike Barrett in the studio with us again. Good Policies, Barrett Insurance Agency. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
I am well. Last couple of weeks we talked flooding, and
why did we do that?
Why? Well, because
we saw what was coming.
Yeah, it's spring with all that snow.
Yeah.
Quick reminder, folks: flood warnings on the Connecticut River from Lancaster to Monroe. Keep that in mind. And once that gets lifted, we're anticipating tomorrow. Hopefully, things will be dried out, but. It's a no-brainer to just touch on this real quickly because we have other things to talk about.
Yeah.
Flood insurance and groundwater seepage, not the same thing.
No. Groundwater seepage is not going to be a covered peril on your homeowner policy, even if you have backup of sewers and drains coverage, which is an optional endorsement, which we've talked about quite a bit, so we won't get into details. But even if you have that, if the groundwater seepage is not the direct result of a failure of an actual system you have in place to keep water drained out of your basement failing, you don't have coverage. So buy the shop vac and lift your stuff.
Sump pump. And
I say that as somebody who has lived through that in the home that I grew up in as a child and as a house that I rented when I was first moved back to the area a few years ago. So it can happen to anyone. And the other one, turn around, don't drown.
Yes.
How
brainer.
more obvious can that be, right?
My girlfriend was going through her Facebook feed, and lo and behold, a picture from somebody of somebody standing on the roof of their car surrounded by water.
Yeah. By the way, did you know that flood is a covered loss on a vehicle if you have comprehensive coverage?
No.
Didn't make that up. That's true.
No.
Yes. So that doesn't mean you should start driving through the water.
No, it doesn't.
But if
West
your
Ward.
vehicle is lost to flood and you have comprehensive coverage, it would be a covered loss for your vehicle.
All right. So you've got our past couple of weeks chats with more information on flooding up on your YouTube page and on Facebook. They can also call you.
Anytime.
All right. So
not anytime. I like to sleep. But other than that, yes. Everyone has to sleep.
Oh, my goodness.
Come
All
on
right.
now.
So on to our next topic.
Yes. Devastating news yesterday with the fire of Notre Dame.
Oh, man. Unbelievable.
And the fact that it seems that they saved the towers, although there may be some structural integrity issues there, their ability to save it. And I already heard that one of the wealthiest families in all of France has pledged $200 million towards the rebuilding
They're
process.
up to almost $340 million right now. So
incredible.
People are stepping up. But
and it's awesome. But what that makes me think of is they've talked about the priceless pieces that are within those walls of that church that, many of them have been saved. Luckily, a lot of the statues were taken out earlier as part of this renovation process. But the possibility of losing these items that, for all intents and purposes, are priceless, it can be parlayed into something that you should think about for yourself.
I was going to say, Joe and Joan out there are going, what does that church fire have to do with my home?
Yeah.
Because we all have something that no matter what amount of money we'll be able to replace it, it is priceless.
It is priceless
to us.
Yeah.
Women, men, it may have a pocket watch, or something like that
Family
from
heirlooms.
great-grandpa, or a Zippo lighter that great-great-grandpa was given in World War II, and with women jewelry and clothing and stuff like that. These are things to think about. What would it cost to replace them? Have you got that much in your insurance?
Right. Granted, many of these things are really irreplaceable. But did you know that for these high-valued items, and I call them interpreted value items, you really could specifically list them and what we call schedule them on your homeowner's insurance policy. Let's go to fine arts, for example. You've got some priceless works of art, amazing stuff. Your house, you lose to fire. Some of these priceless pieces of art you may be able to get again. You may very well be able to find a replacement piece. Well, truth be told, if it's a beautiful, priceless painting of the Rocky Mountains, or I'm trying to think of some kind of a scene, but the insurance company, if you don't have that specifically scheduled, they're going to go, well, that's just a painting. That's not really, yes, I know it's worth that much money, but the insurance company is going to always pay the lesser of. And they're going to say, well, sorry, that's just not worth, what you're saying it is. We just find it to be a painting. So why is scheduling so darn important? Scheduling is so darn important because when you do so, the process requires that you have, within the past 5 years, most typically, an appraisal. What does that appraisal have on it? A full description of what that item is, whatever it may be, along with an estimate of value. And that is how you would list it on your policy, and the insurance company would have that to refer to.
Along with an appraisal, would it be wise for a consumer out there to also have an inventory that may be accompanied with, say, photographs of proof? Are these things that could help?
Yeah, they could. I mean, for value, they're not.
Okay.
If it's a really interpreted value item, I always go to the jewelry. You go and buy a piece of jewelry. You buy an engagement ring for your soon-to-be wife, and you spend $2,500, and then you go get an appraisal for it, and it's a $5,000 piece. These are interpreted value items. So unless you have the specific description of what it is, and that's why it needs to be part of the process, jewelry's easy. What are the C's? What's the cut? Clarity, color, carat. What are all those? And that's how they're going to determine it. Plus, there's a value associated with it. So high valued pieces of anything, really. So if you have art, if you have jewelry, if you have, in some cases, there are companies that actually let you put computers. I know when we're off the air, you talked about, computer devices that you could lose to a fire or the data on them, which is also a priceless component. So it's about having a dialogue and seeing what are your options. And I like your idea of photos and having an inventory, but where would that be?
Hopefully in a fireproof safe or in a bank safe deposit box.
Right. And actually, with today's technology, there are many great places to do that. So III.org, and the III stands for Insurance Information Institute, has this really great free app where you can download it. And now it's stored in the cloud where you have photos and descriptions, which is not a bad thing to have. It's going to at least help you through the recovery process if you lose your home to a fire.
If I remember, sorry to cut you off there, if I remember in our past Tuesday morning get-togethers here, basically it comes down to the assessment of the appraiser, right?
Yeah. And the company's going to go off. So you're going to list your item for the value of the appraisal, but the insurance company really, remember, it's always the lesser of. So what's the insurance company going to do? They're going to look at the description of that piece, and they're going to get that piece. And if they can get it for less,
they're going to.
If they can get it for more, you're paying the difference. If they can get it for the same, have at it. But it really is the description that's the nuts and bolts of how you're going to have that optimum protection for those hard-to-value items. Same could be held true for guns. Maybe you have a Civil War or a historical valued gun. Companies are going to go, well, that's great. That's a 22. Here you go. You need to have that to quantify what the value is and what the description is.
Well, the importance of insurance, and I'm going to imagine being on the insurance company side of it, the important part is that it was replaceable and has been replaced. I mean, that's the bottom line. And in the real world, that's really all we want as consumers.
Right. You want that protection. And then maybe it's something that cannot be replaced. I'm sure there's a settlement agreement that could be had through that process. But again, it comes down to having that discussion because, it was just such a devastating thing to see yesterday. And I'm still wondering what they've recovered. They haven't quite released, but it sounds like a lot came out of there. I'm hoping as much as possible. But especially this week, of all weeks for that to have happened.
Yeah,
but,
Easter week.
Yeah. So just it brought to mind the importance of having that discussion with your agent or your carrier and not just assuming that it's covered, which unfortunately many people do.
Well, make sure what you own is covered, but also make sure that that, as you mentioned, get an appraisal done on very high value and high personal value things.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
Right. Tell them how to get in touch with us.
Give us a call, 748-5224. We're on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. You can visit our website, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube, all Barrett Insurance Agency.
And Tuesday mornings here.
Always right here.
Magic in the morning.
Appreciate it.
Thanks an awful lot. Keep your hat on, okay?
I don't have a hat, so it should be fine.
All right. Musically, we've got Matt Nathanson and music from Sheryl Crow.